Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Gooner Ramble. Tonight, we're going to be discussing Arsenal's rather unconvincing performance away from home in Paris against Paris Saint-Germain. Apologies for the slight delay. We did have some technical difficulties. Tonight, I'm going to be joined by Clive and Was. You were at the game last night in Paris. You've kindly made it back for tonight's podcast. It was a rather sketchy performance from Arsenal, especially in that first half, but we've salvaged a point, a decent result.
Decent result, 100% a decent result, but I mean, at the end of the day, I suppose the result is what matters. But let's be honest, it was a terrible game, weren't it? And right from the off, 30 odd seconds into the game, it really set a pattern for the game, and we did struggle, but we managed to come away with a point and put ourselves in pole position for the group. So good and bad stuff to come out of that game, and I'm sure we'll expand on that. But yeah, I suppose a good result, but not quite any sort of performance.
Yeah, of course. Clive, I was hoping that we'd go into this game with more of an approach that we'd go out there and win it. I thought the lineup that we had was at times not the one that the fans wanted to see. In fact, I'd go as far as saying I was very surprised by the team that started. We saw Alexis Sanchez start as striker, something that I felt for 60 minutes of this match evidently didn't work. We saw a different player when he was put out on that left-hand side. We didn't see Granit Xhaka start the game. All round a very peculiar lineup. Why do you think Arsene Wenger opted for a team of that caliber?
I don't actually know. Right, so no. If you think about it, right, this isn't we're not Leicester. This isn't the first time we've been into this competition. Right, this is basically we've done this a few times. So he's going to be here 20 years. Might be our 19th season, and you'd think by now we'd have some sort of strategy to make sure we're in games, right? So you often hear me say, you watch games based on your own sort of structures and what you believe in, what your own experiences are, and what your exposure are to football, right? So whenever I watch football, I always look at the centre midfield, and I always look at that area and I look at it and say, you know what, that's an area we've got to control. And then you looked at PSG and you looked at their pure physicality. Right, so you looked at Matuidi, you looked at Rabiot, you look at Kukoviak, you just looked at Aurier, and these are beasts on a big wide pitch. And what do? We send out little Santi, who was flagging the last 15 minutes of the game at the weekend. We send out Coquelin, who did well-ish at the weekend, but people have a debate on. And we send out Ozil in that middle three, and Ozil was in a non-tackling mood. He wasn't in a physically dominant mood. And so I just look at that and think, that's not right. The way I look at football is you make sure nothing comes down your middle. And on my TV screen, all I could see was big green spaces in the centre of our midfield running on our back four. And these are just like fundamentals of the game that we are just ignoring. And I don't know why. So you start a game with strength, and then you wear people in, and then you put your technical ability later on. Now, Santi ended the game fantastically well, but he took us all through trauma for the first sort of 60, 70 minutes. And I think that's down to the manager. And if you start with a stronger side in centre mid particularly, and then brought on our flair players for the last 20, 25, I think we could have won that game. And I think it's time for us to learn lessons from the 19 years experience of being in the competition. You think we were newbies, and we're not newbies, and I'm struggling to work out how we've done that in our midfield. The goalkeeper situation, like he said, he sees that, but structurally and positioning, we've now got the personnel to play whatever style we want, and we are deciding not to use it. So that's a shame, really.
No, you're bang on there, mate. And we spoke before the game about how we could have potentially gone into this match with Granit Xhaka and Mohamed Onana playing a midfield pivot, and that was an idea that was kind of batted about a bit. And looking at the game in hindsight, certainly would have been a very good midfield partnership, in my opinion, to deal with the threat of Verratti. We conceded almost immediately. Every defender pretty much at fault. Koscielny being drawn in early, Monreal being absolutely skinned by Aurier, Mustafi being positionally questionable, and then Bellerin not covering him. Why do you think the defence just went to sleep so quickly?
It's just we weren't out of the blocks, were we? Like you said, there's so many players that were accountable for that goal. It's unbelievable. And at this level, in the Champions League, and like Clive said, we know what's going to happen. We've been there, we've done it. It's a big club we're going to. The fans are up for it. The place is buzzing. It's that early into a game to make that many fundamental mistakes, both structurally, both individually. It's just insanity. And then you've almost given yourself a handicap. And PSG then knew that they could sit off and they would create chances still, but they didn't have to press the game as much as they probably would have if it had stayed 0-0 being the home team. Yeah. It's just so frustrating that we put ourselves in that situation right from the word off to see us not capitulate like that, but just everyone was all at sea, and I couldn't explain it. We was all sort of stood there and just thinking, bloody hell, how's this happened already? Like, it shouldn't happen. It was just almost beyond belief. And like Clive was saying, where he touched on the midfield too, I don't think there's any structure in that too. I think Wenger's almost playing them flat and saying, one go, one stay, but I'd rather see Coquelin patrolling and just give Cazorla the freedom to pick up the pockets of space and get the ball to feet, which he didn't do, Clive, like you said, for the first 70 minutes. And he was almost hiding. And it was horrible to see, because you could see Mesut getting deeper and deeper and deeper and trying to get possession. Santi couldn't get in the game. Coquelin's running. I mean, Coquelin, I personally thought he had a good game, but he's doing all the good things in the wrong areas of the pitch. He's hassling and doing all his hard work too high up, or he's making so many sprints a game all over the place, when I think Coquelin is a protector, and I think he's very intelligent, and I think he can seek danger. I just think the balance is all wrong, and it took 40 seconds to get us ripped apart, and we feared the worst then, and it could have been worse, but...
Yeah, it certainly could have been about 5 or 6 at that point. The amount of chances Cavani missed, probably our saviour on the night. But regarding that little midfield situation, and I don't want to stick on this topic too long, but one theory that was presented to me the other day was, all right, Clive, maybe we'll stick on it for a bit longer than expected. But Cazorla and Coquelin was a midfield pivot that was absolutely sensational for us throughout the 2014-15 season. It started away at Man City, it developed from there, and for about 6-7 months, it was absolutely sensational for us. Personally, I think Cazorla getting to the age of almost 32 now, his legs are naturally going to tire. I don't think that partnership holds the same strength that it did a couple of seasons ago. And one theory that's been presented to me is Wenger preferences Cazorla and Coquelin because he wants to play Xhaka with Ramsey and build that chemistry up. Clive, do you think that's something that is, a valid excuse going into a game of yesterday's stature? I mean, surely we should have gone with Cazorla, Xhaka and Ozil as a midfield three, surely.
That's one option. But again, we got to think, I don't want to sound all Sam Allardyce, right? But in these big tournaments where you're trying to get to the next stage, there needs to be a level of pragmatism, right? So I'm okay to have, maybe a slight change of formation. I mean, dare I whisper that in Arsenal in language? I mean, why not have 3 centre mids in and 3 up, and really do control the areas and get your fullbacks higher and wider? I mean, what they did was really smart, right? They almost had like a false left winger in Matuidi. So Bellerin experienced the first time he's been man-marked and doubled up on. They recognised his threat. So they basically said, we're not going to threaten down our left. We're going to stop Bellerin and stop that side, because Arsenal do a lot of work from the right side. And they basically overloaded on the right side with Di Maria and Aurier. And Monreal got rinsed again. He got rinsed for pace. So they used the width of the pitch and they stretched us out. Now, if you just look at the names on that team sheet, this isn't like a carrier bag. This is PSG. We know the names, right? I don't know all the names of all the players in Europe, but I know their names and I know how they play. They are strong athletes. And this was a day for strong athletes, good runners that can hold control and then press them back. And as soon as we press them back, they would look very average, didn't they? They looked really average. And suddenly we were passing through their lines. We weren't doing it with any sort of gusto. We were just doing it. And they were just giving us chances. I think sometimes you've got to say, hold on, we've got the personnel now. We have Xhaka, we have El Neni, we have Coquelin. We can go to places and say, well, maybe we won't play a lacking in confidence Oxlade-Chamberlain. We'll solidify our middle. create the platform for Ozil to do his work, connecting with Sanchez, and basically create problems and not having Ozil running up and down, creating the ball, getting the ball from deep, and looking basically pretty cheesed off. That body language you've seen before, right? And it's really worrying when he looks like that. And it happens a lot in Europe. I think there's a lack of tactical nous here. Just stay in the game. I mean, what other team of our level concedes within the first minute? You know, this is embarrassing. You know, so I do think that we've got to be a bit more smart now. We've got these resources, we've got these positional assets, yet use them for certain occasions. And when you're playing a physical PSG with 3 or 4 over 6 foot in the upper half of the pitch, for me, El Neni and Xhaka, one or two, didn't really bother me. All 3 of them, we just need to compete. And maybe I come from a different era, right? But when I used to play football in centre mid, you didn't come down the middle. Even if you come down the middle, I'm leaving something on you, right? And that sort of mindset we need to have more of. And just especially when we're trying to go away to the top team in France, a team that regularly gets to the quarters and semi-finals in the Champions League.
That's some fantastic points raised there, Clive. I feel like this time last year when we were losing games to Dynamo Zagreb and Olympiacos, and we were having just a frankly abysmal start to the Champions League, there were a lot of conversations about Arsene Wenger having blind faith in players. Now I think we've got a much stronger squad, and we're not in a position where we're playing Debussy and the like on a regular basis. I do think last season it was definitely a case of Arsene Wenger having too much faith in players that simply weren't good enough. But do you think it was, in a way, some of a similar situation yesterday? I mean, we saw him play David Ospina, so it kind of backs up that point. But, I mean, playing players that, I mean, at times you could evidently say aren't as good as the players that were on the bench.
Do you know what? I was fuming when I saw the lineup. I was absolutely fuming. And Clive will know, you can imagine what I was like. I was raging. I was out there with Mark, and he had the pleasure of spending the first 45 minutes next to me, and it was a nightmare, to be honest with you, because I was so frustrated with what I was seeing, and I couldn't believe that the selection was just, it baffled me. The whole thing, the striker situation. All summer we want a striker. We go out, sign Lucas Perez. We put 2 strikers on the bench and a left winger up front. And then you think, okay, right, we've done that. And then, I mean, Alex Iwobi and Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, Laurent Koscielny scored more senior goals than both of them combined. I mean, we're going away to the French champions here. Are you serious? Yeah. Like, and I'm looking at that and thinking, right, okay, so you've chose that. You've thrown them in there. What does that say for Lucas Perez? I mean, you threw him in at the deep end against Southampton, and then a few days later you say, well, no, in fact, I'm not even going to bring you into the game. It was really, really strange. You're asking players like Iwobi and Ox to perform at the highest level when they're just young lads. They're just, yeah. I mean, well, not so much Ox because he has had time and he's really got to start performing, but it still confuses me now, the team selection, and that middle of the park was the one that killed me the most. But I think I just want to say Marco Verratti's performance I thought was phenomenal, and I think he is everything that we sort of want Santi Cazorla to be. And Santi's now at an age and at a physical level where he can't quite be Marco Verratti-esque. Like, he can't be that man against bigger teams. But and in the Ospina situation, we're talking about giving faith to players. I mean, realistically, Ospina, absolutely phenomenal. How can you drop him now? I mean, and he'll drop him straight away. And Petr Cech's brilliant keeper, but you almost feel sorry for him because he comes in as a game of his life, and now he's just dropped. So I don't know whether he's putting too much faith in players or not enough faith in players, or I was baffled by that team. I was absolutely astonished because everyone looked at the team sheet against Southampton, was like, right, French champions away, biggest game of the Champions League group stage. He's resting players. We're going to go out there. Xhaka's going to start. Giroud will start up front. Big physical. We'll go at them. And it was a complete opposite. I thought it was a joke. I thought he'd announced the team for Nottingham Forest a week early. I was so surprised. But at the end of the day, we got the point.
When the team was announced, right, I actually tweeted out, I bet there's a few Cronenbergs hit the floor in France right now. Right? Because and I was laughing. I don't know why I was in this strange laughing mood. But Ospina thing didn't 100% surprise me because it's no doubt he's got him to stay. He's probably told him, "You are my cup keeper," right? So he'll probably play in all of the cups this year. And I think that's a smart way of keeping a world-class keeper. I say that now, by the way, a world-class keeper in our club. If he'd have chucked one in, maybe we'd have a different conversation. But I got to say, the manager's got some balls. After last year, doing what happened in the first game, was it Zagreb first game?
Yeah.
And then he threw one in. He looked cold, and I thought, and then to go out there and do it again, I tell you what, he does not care about us. He's got his own relationship with the players, and he makes promises to them. He does not care about us. He does not care about Twitter. He doesn't care about YouTube. He doesn't care about Arsenal Fan TV. He cares about his relationship with his players and what they are, and that's what matters to him, and quite right too, right? And so we all try and pick the team, and we all got it about 4 wrong. The trauma he puts us through, as if he's doing it on purpose, to say, you know what, we're just building a bit of momentum. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll just drag that comfort blanket away from you and completely, play Santi Cazorla twice in 3 days when he's 106, so basically won the game on his own for us at the weekend, had to be carried off and put in a St John's ambulance on the way home, and then we drag him across to Paris and then put him out there again, right? And then and give him a couple of young kids on the outside that are finding their way in the world. Mesut Ozil, who, let's be honest, wonderful player. He's my pedestal player. But when he goes missing, mate, you can't find him in the phone box, right? He goes, and then he turns up for the one pass, and then we score. And then we got Sanchez doing 3 men's jobs up front. So, sorry, Cookie, to take you off your.
That's fine, man.
Off your. Fine. But it is quite amazing how difficult we seem to make this. I would like to see a much more pragmatic approach, so we just find our way in the competition, and then see what happens. Because they were good, but we made them look brilliant. And when we put them under pressure, they were average. So it's a shame.
Yeah, you're not wrong. You can't help but feel that in that second half, given that we moved Alexis over to the left-hand side, we brought Olivier Giroud on, we had a real chance. If we'd have started with those players in their correct positions, we could have gone on to win this game. Was the one thing that really, really grinded my gears with this lineup was Alexis Sanchez starting at striker once again. And it's not just for the fact that we've got 2 out-and-out strikers on the bench. It's the fact that Alexis simply does not work as a striker. He's not a striker. We've wasted him for 60 minutes of that game. He is so much more effective on the left-hand side. And I can't help but feel that Wenger's playing him in that position to prove a point, as if to say, look, in my mind, he can play there and he will score goals. But it's not working for us. We've got no chemistry when he's in that position. He's just not suited to that role. So why is Wenger continuously playing him in that role?
Answer that one, boy.
Stumped, mate. Right. I think not one man, I don't think there'd have been any man on the planet other than Arsene Wenger would have picked that team. I honestly don't believe it. You could have asked anyone and no one would have come up with that. To try and explain why he would play Alexis Sanchez centre forward, but I don't know. Maybe he thinks that Alexis can interchange. We saw it at Watford. It worked a little bit, but we were playing Watford, not the French champions in their own backyard. It was strange. Obviously, like you said, the dynamic of the game completely changed when you put him out to his more natural area. He's dangerous. He squares up his fullback. He likes to beat his man. Everyone knows he's going to cut inside, and when he's on it, when you defend against him, you know what he's going to do, but you still can't stop him. Yeah. And Giroud is that physical presence that takes players out of the game. We missed quite a bit of width on the other wing. I think Ox was just, again, when's it going to happen for the fella? But with regards to Alexis, just put him in his position. Stop all these square pegs in round holes and all this. Like, it don't work. Like, we know, like you said, Cookie, we're all seeing it and thinking, please, no, not up front again. Like, you've gone out and signed Lucas Perez. Like, that's why you signed him, surely. I'm gone. Clive, I ain't got a clue.
Well, I actually think, from a personnel perspective, I don't know why he did it. Is there issues with Giroud's fitness? That's the rumour, that Giroud's fitness is not great. But, and he's come on with one of those sort of Zagreb type umps and got himself sent off, right? So, which we have seen. We've seen it before when he gets like that. And what you wouldn't have seen yet was that he had 3 or 4 goes at the referee before he eventually gets himself, but then gets himself sent off. So by the time he gets sent off, the referee hates him, right? So, so that's just, you just got to manage the ref. It's just the basics of football, right? So, I think it is an easy thing to do to get wrapped up in the personnel, especially when we have the personnel options on the bench. But actually, if you looked at it, it took a long time for us to work out that we needed to run through them, right? So we don't run through their lines. We do not run through teams. We need to do it more. We are so easy to defend against and mark. And, you know, everyone's laughing at Cavani, but he didn't score. But his movement was stunning, right? Absolutely. You could not pin him down with a rugby tackle. He was everywhere, creating angles, cutting through the lines. Koscielny looked knackered by the end, chasing after him. I love my centre forwards to run like that. You know, best we've got is Welbeck. He gets it, he knocks it off, and he goes through lines. He goes through people. And we need to do that more. And I think Ox, just before he got dragged off, went through the line. Alexis did it. Iwobi then thought, you know what, I'll start doing it. And suddenly, you know, Thiago Silva, Marquinhos, they looked like kings in the first half. They looked like rabbits in headlights in the second half. And we're not talking about Walcott or Giroud doing this. We're talking about Iwobi and Ox, 2 young players, inexperienced. The game is probably too big for them. But it doesn't matter who you are, it's how you play. And we get wrapped up in the person, I do. But our style, breaking teams down, is very superstar dependent. It's dependent on Ozil. It's dependent on Sanchez. It's not dependent on how we play. And we need to change this. We need to be more incisive and start running through people. And whilst we talk about the third man running, it sounds like basics, the basic of football. 1-2, third man run. Aurier did it against us on the right hand side.
You're in.
Get in, hurt people, turn them around, make them work, stress them out, make them come a yard off you so you can play. Don't be so passive. You know, and I think this is a style of play, it's a formation, structural issue in centre mid, but up front, it's the personnel. They don't run through people. We are too afraid to make the runs, and we've got to change this. Well, otherwise, what we saw against Southampton is going to happen again. It nearly happened last night. Away from home, normally in the league, I quite like us, but I'm telling you, teams sit in, they can do it because we won't run through them. And we are then dependent on some superstar magic in the inches that we try to play in.
I think on that note, though, if we had started this game with Olivier Giroud up top and he was holding up the ball for us and allowing the likes of Oxlade-Chamberlain and Iwobi to run off him, then we might have seen that running through the lines to full effect. Yeah. It just raises the question as to why Giroud didn't start this game?
Again, 6'4", massive fella going away. He knows all the friends. By the way, the PSG fans absolutely despise Olivier Giroud. It must be to do with the Euros because every time he was even anywhere near the ball, they're booing him. They hate him, and Giroud had something to prove, and it very much surprised me that the centre backs, Thiago Silva, and that must have been thinking happy days. Alexis Sanchez, he ain't the kind of man to run in behind. He ain't going to cause us too much damage. He'll keep the ball in front of us, and we'll be able to see him off. And then as soon as Alexis is on the left, he's the one driving. He's causing panic. He's running at them. They're thinking, "Oh God, where am I going?" And then they're starting to worry about Giroud. They're thinking, "Oh, he's a big physical presence here. He's 6'4", and I know he got himself sent off." Or to be fair, from where I was, obviously I was miles away, but it didn't really look like he'd done a lot wrong. I mean, obviously I don't know what happened previously with the ref and things, but it's just mental. It is just mental. We'd have all probably played Olivier Giroud up front, and if not Olivier Giroud, probably Lucas Perez. But Giroud should have started, I think.
Yeah, undoubtedly. We've spoken a lot about the midfield and the attack, and obviously there were quite a few problems that we've all agreed on. But one thing that I think was a glaring issue last night was the defence, because we could have, quite frankly, conceded about 5 or 6 goals to Edinson Cavani, who on the night did us a great favour by being quite horrendous at times. Clive, we saw Mustafi get his second appearance for Arsenal in concession. It was a frustrating evening from him. He didn't have the performance to emulate the one he put in against Southampton. I mean, I think the whole defence was at fault at times. I don't think Koscielny particularly had his best game either. Bellerin and Monreal, I think they struggled at times. Why do you think we've gone from having what was a very sturdy defensive performance against Southampton to such an absolute shambles last night?
I think without going back over it again, I'm not being funny. They were massively exposed. They were being ran at, and you know, I've got a 55-inch TV in my front room, and about 43 of them was our centre midfield with green grass, no players in it, right? So and that's how it looked, and they were just being run at consistently. I do think, you know, Cavani's a very good mover. I was thinking, could we play him offside a little bit more? Because he did get in a lot. Again, you can get picked off as a defender if there's no pressure on the ball. If there's no pressure on the passer, they can just dink it over the top of you. And everyone's looking at the fullbacks. And I'm thinking, well, look at the source. Where's this coming from? I look back, and I can see Santi chugging like a train, right? Doing the job he's just not suited for, running backwards. Now, later in the game when he's running forward, it's different, right? So I think they were exposed. There wasn't enough pressure on the ball. If they bypassed Coquelin, there was nothing else that was going to stop them. And they could just drive straight through. And then you're asking your defenders to make decisions. If you're continually making decisions when people are running through you and they're running at you, you're going to get a lot of those decisions wrong. And that's how it looked. And I also felt, I don't know how you felt in the ground was, but when I look at Arsenal, I always like to see the hope of speed, right? So I thought they nullified Oxlade-Chamberlain quite well speed-wise, and Bellerin. They put Matuidi on there and basically sacrificed him as a centre mid and used him as a false winger, and then tucked him in when they wanted to get possession. And on the right-hand side, I thought they were quicker than us. I thought Di Maria was quick. I thought Cavani was quick. I thought Rabiot was progressive. You know, I'm looking at them. I thought Kukoviak held his position, and Verratti just went where everyone else wasn't.